A very good evening. You're watching India Today Go live on social media platforms. I'm Nabila Jamal bringing you a roundup of today's news. Let me start with very unfortunate scenes that unfolded today at the Singu border where several of the locals, remember the farmers have been protesting against the farm laws for over 2 months, 65 days, and locals in that area are now starting to get frustrated. They claim that their business has come to a grinding halt. They've suffered severe losses in their income, and considering that they've supported the farmers unconditionally for 2 months, now they say enough is enough. And this turn of events has happened right after the Republic Day tractor rally turned violent. Here, the locals around there asking or questioning the intentions of these farmers, saying that if they could really disrespect the national flag, if they could break through barricades and rush through the national capital and attack police officers, attack the Jawan, and get to the Red Fort, lay siege at the Red Fort, then these are anti-national elements. These are not farmers. These are Khalistani elements who've infiltrated into the protest. Remember, the police department too have time and again been accusing the farmers of not filtering out the Khalistani elements who they claim have already entered the protest sites and are trying to instigate and trying to push this protest to become a violent one. Now the police say it time and again, but the lot of questions raised about the police's preparedness. Now, if the police really did find such Khalistani elements or terrorist elements infiltrating into these protests here, they should have been doubly prepared. They should have had larger forces or heavier deployment along those areas to ensure that the farmers don't infiltrate, to ensure that the fraction, I wouldn't even like to call them farmers because those who turned violent are not farmers. They are criminal elements, troublesome elements who try to push through and make their way, turning this entire agitation into a violent one. There are genuine farmers also who followed the actual tractor rally path, but unfortunately, because of the rogue elements, the genuine farmers are being discredited. Now, what happened today was several locals from the Singu border came forward, and because they're upset with what happened on Republic Day, started throwing stones at the farmers who were seated in along the border area of Singu, at those farmers there, and asked them to vacate from that site. This is not today alone. Even yesterday, the protest started from the locals. Locals came in large numbers. In fact, now they claim themselves to be locals. They've got to be verified. The police has to verify if they're really locals or some goons from wherever. But these are people who came armed with lathis and stones and whatnot, passed through 4 police barricades, 3 or 4 police barricades. In fact, police were standing right along those lines. They saw these locals coming forward. They knew that the locals were really charged. The locals were saying, we're going to move them out. They were raising slogans against the farmers, saying that we're going to throw them out by hook or by crook and whatnot. All that was said. Despite that, the police didn't act in time. They waited until the issue got violent. And that's what questions now being raised as to why did the police not filter these locals right at that point when they were coming in with lathis and looked very aggressive? But giving credit to the police there, they did try to broker peace. In fact, the police, right when they saw the locals becoming a lot more aggressive after they infiltrated into multiple barricades, because remember, these are fortified areas. Even a journalist has to show an ID card and come in. So about 150 locals came in without being stopped at those points is a surprise, because otherwise nobody else is allowed into those border areas. Like I said, journalists, our own reporters to be entering have to show their ID cards and have to show their legitimacy there before entering those protest sites. So locals entering so aggressive and agitated, how did the police not stop them at that point? And now that they entered, the police did try to broker peace between the two sides. They asked the locals to calm down. They asked the farmers also to calm down. Farmer union leaders were also trying to push away those protesters who were getting angry because of the locals hurling abuses at them. On both sides, very quickly, in few minutes, about an hour, this whole thing took place where they came in, the police tried to calm them down. It didn't happen. And just a few minutes after that, this escalated to such a point where swords were brandished, stones were pelted, tear gas shells were used again. It was violent scenes at the Singu border, and we're really upset because has the lesson been learnt after the Republic Day violence? Can we really avoid this kind of clash anymore? Is there a possibility to come to a consensus? It's really upsetting people at large because these visuals don't show us in good light. It doesn't show anyone in good light. So what's the real conclusion and a solution to this to ensure peace and tranquility along those areas. And farmers being upset does not make anyone happy. Even people across the country, all of us are surely concerned with the farmers' grouse. But is there a way that the farmers can protest, a better way, without inconveniencing people? We understand that they feel inconvenienced, but talks are on. The government is holding multiple rounds of talks. They are trying to, convince the farmers to come out with suggestions for amends, but they're not willing to quash those laws. So, is there a way that they can come to a middle ground? They're still trying to find that out. But even before that, we're looking at some really violent scenes along those border areas. Now, a quick word on not just Singu border, Ghazipur border as well. UP government yesterday, after the whole situation got out of hand on Republic Day, the UP government then ordered for police and the district administration to clear out the site at the Ghazipur border. They, whether by force or very peacefully asking those farmers to leave, very gently pushing them away, whatever the way it is, move those farmers out of the Ghazipur border was the order of the UP government. Now, when the police reached there, a lot of chaos ensued. In fact, several farmer leaders, including Rakesh Tikait, was very upset. He started crying, he howled, he yelled, he wept. And then he said last night that he's going to go on an indefinite hunger strike. And he says that he will not move from that spot. And then he called for many more of the farmers from his area and other areas to come join the protest at the Ghazipur border. So when the police attempted to move those protesters away from Ghazipur border and clear those border areas and throw it open back to commuters and the locals around those and that vicinity, right then the situation got out of hand to a point where the farmer union leaders held fort. They refused to budge, and they said that they would rather die and give their life away, but will not move from that spot until the farm laws are quashed. So Ghazipur border now also become a very sensitive region. But let me tell you, where one expected the thinning of those protesters along those borders, but it seems like tables have turned. Now we're looking at thousands of more farmers from the UP, western side of UP, who've now joined in the agitation along the Ghazipur border. The police, who have heavy deployment right there, aren't doing much now that they intended to clear the farmers from the spot, but now it seems like more farmers have come and joined the agitation. So the police deployment is also there, protesters are also there, they're really swelling in numbers despite section 144 that's been imposed along the Ghazipur border area. Now remember, let me quickly cut across to Tikri border area. That's also another agitation site where locals again have come out, but here the locals are a lot peaceful. They held placards, they held banners, they had the Indian flag, and they very peacefully asked for the farmers to vacate. They said again that they've been supporting the farmers relentlessly, but this can't happen. They don't like violence. They can't accept that the national capital was violated upon. The Red Fort was laid siege, and people created violence and hurt the Jawans and the police officers, and they disapprove of this kind of violence. So locals now at the Tikri border as well asking for the farmers to leave. Now one should remember that for 2.5 months or 2 months and 5 days, 65 days almost, the agitating farmers have given food. They've fed the locals in the vicinity. They've, through their langars, locals, we believe, our reporters on ground tell us that locals in the vicinity, especially Singu border, Tikri border, didn't even cook food for 2 months. They ate off the langars that were conducted at the border areas by those agitating farmers. So it's really heartening to see that this kind of clash between the locals and the farmers now. But what to do? One has to come out with a solution. Either the farmers move out and protest at a designated spot where they don't inconvenience locals, or the police give the farmers absolute protection that this does not turn violent. So what's the solution? We're hoping that the government comes out with some relief and respite. This is really getting ugly. Nobody likes to see what we're seeing. Many AAP leaders also joined in. Manish Sisodia went and met with Rakesh Tikait. He extended support, saying that we're going to stand with you. We are looking at least 20, now very interestingly, 20 opposition parties, including TMC, Shiv Sena, the Congress, of course, AAP, and several other opposition parties have now boycotted the president's budget speech. It's an annual budget speech by the president. Ramnath Kovind this time held a budget speech early this morning, and the opposition parties boycotted it saying that they want to stand in solidarity with the farmers and the farmers' protest. So we're looking at some huge support that the farmers' protest is gaining from the opposition parties. But nonetheless, the opposition parties, ironically, which President Ramnath Kovind has also listed out in his budget speech, that they were the ones initially, like the Congress party back in 2016 and over the years, have been insisting that there must be reforms to the farm laws, that the agricultural sector must be modernized. They must come out with open markets for farmers and whatnot. And now when the BJP brings it, the Congress is against it. So AAP even implemented one of those laws, but now has gone back to support the farmers and asking for quashing of those laws. So here the president has also called out the duplicity of the opposition parties. And while he spoke in the budget speech, President time and again hailed the farm laws, saying that this is great for farmers. They will increase their income manifold, and that the farmers must be only willing, and that the government is working to bust false information that's being fed to the farmers. Now, this is the government's stance. While you have that on one hand, the government still sticking by their farm laws. On the other, agitation against it growing in number. Now, a quick word here as I come down to the economic survey. As the budget now session begins, the economic survey now project India's 2021 to 22 real economic growth at 11%, and calls for, in fact, they've called for higher government spending as well, and says that India will take at least 2 years to bounce back from this COVID-19 pandemic. The downside, the recession that occurred due to the pandemic, it's going to take 2 years for India to recover. Apart from that, I think the budget session starts on the 1st of Feb. Nirmala Sitharaman to be presenting it. It's a flagship annual document review, which will be carried out. An in-depth preview of the budget also. Remember, Prime Minister Narendra Modi said that the budget session this time also, the budget will be split into 4 or 5 sessions. It will be a continuation of last year. Economic packages, booster packages will be given one after the other to sort of boost and inject the economy with the much needed budget. We're hoping that the government indeed spends more this time as expected. That's it for me. I think a quick word on Bengal politics. Rajiv Banerjee resigns as the MLA. He already resigned as a minister. Now he resigns as the MLA as well. So he's off from the TMC, likely to be joining the BJP. We're looking at rumors doing the rounds that many more BJP MLAs might just join, many more TMC MLAs might just join the BJP soon. And a quick word on the anti-cow slaughter bill in Karnataka, which the opposition raised huge objections to, particularly the Congress. Now it seems like the other opposition, JDS, is more or less leaning towards the BJP and will more likely vote in favor of the anti-slaughter bill in Karnataka. That's that. As I wrap with you, I'm definitely going to wrap off with India being the fastest country in the world to vaccinate its population. About 6 lakh odd people have been vaccinated so far in just 16 days. So that's a record that India has set in the world. We're really getting a lot of global appreciation for it, and we're hoping that this continues. Thank you very much for joining us.